In this lesson we will talk about how we can create a realistic background in Vray. Let me show you first the final render, and we will have to discuss at least a few things. First, we got two layers at least. We got the windows and we got our curtains. Well, some people do not use curtains, but we use curtains in interior design, of course. In the previous lesson we talked about how we can use the Vray sky and Vray sun to create our background, and you can see that instead of our Vray sky, the Vray dome, it's loaded with an HDRI. If you remember, if we have a light dome in the scene, it will override our Vray sky, and you can also see that I've increased the multiplier of our Vray light dome. I will start the render so you can see what we got in the scene, and also I would like to talk about how we can solve the problem when we got windows and curtains as well. One thing that I would like to mention while our render starts, you may ask why in the render that I've showed earlier I don't have that background installed. Applying all the details to the interior project, it's an artistic approach, but when you are creating interior design projects for the clients, you don't have the time always to apply those tools or all those brushes, artistic tools I mean. As my projects are focused on interior design, I bother with the interior part. The clients don't bother as well about the background, they care about the interior part. That's why usually I use just a simple template outside. Now let me decrease the intensity of our HDRI and you will understand why I've raised it. We said that we impact our photorealism in the image when we raise the multiplier above 1. But you can see in the render, if we use 1, we are not getting enough light. That is because of our curtains and our windows, and we will have to understand how we can solve that. Let me move the curtains so you can see the light that we obtain from our HDRI. But keep in mind we still got the windows. Some do erase them. In that way the calculation of light will be a bit faster, although keeping them will add a bit to our photorealism. We also got the sun as well. If you remember, when we talked about the sun, we said that we use the size multiplier to control our shadows. I know there are renders that use sun sharp shadows, but I do prefer in renders diffuse or blurry shadows. Now let's get to our background. First of all, we have to understand that we have to link the outside weather and what we are obtaining in our interior. You cannot use diffuse or blurry shadows or smooth shadows and have a sunny day outside and receive sharp shadows that we got from our sun. You can see here an image. This is just a simple background and we will try to use this in Vray. This is actually the part where you'll have to decide how you'll create your background. You'll have to count the windows and of course you'll have to count the curtains. Usually we use a plane. If we got panoramic views, we will use a plane with a bend modifier. In this case our window is straight, so we will use just a straight plane. The next step will be of course to apply this image to our plane, so we will have to get to material editor, and I would like to show the most simple method when we create just a simple plane and we assign just a simple Vray material with a diffuse color. We will use for this the Vray bitmap, and we will load in the Vray bitmap our image. So let's choose our background, and next we will assign this background to our diffuse channel. First of all, we have to keep in mind that this plane is not emitting light. This is the first problem that we got. That's why usually we use the outside lighting. If we use the Vray sun and Vray sky, or we can use the HDRI. And one more thing that I would like to explain why I usually use HDRIs instead of Vray sky. The color palette that you got from HDRIs are more realistic than the Vray sky. After we assign the background to our plane, we will have to rotate the plane 90 degrees and set it in front of our windows. Next we will have to adjust the position of our plane. You can use scale to do that. First of all, I will not play too much with our plane now, but you'll have to adjust it, fine adjust it, so we can obtain a real transition from the interior to exterior. Next I'll start our render so you can see that we got a problem with our light. The plane is blocking the light from our Vray sun and our HDRI, and you can also see that the weather or the intensity of light that we got from outside is too dark. So here interferes the first method that we will use with this plane. We will have to exclude it from our outside lighting so we can bring the light from outside inside our interior. So in order to do that, we will have to select our plane, we will have to go to object properties, and here we will have to change some things. We will have to exclude our object or our background from casting shadows, receiving shadows, and also it will not be visible to our reflections and refractions. Next I will start one more time our render, but you will see one problem. Our outside light, the Vray sun and HDRI, are passing through our plane now, but we are not seeing it in our windows. This is of course because of the refractions in our windows. That's why we will have to delete our windows so we can see our plane. So let me choose our windows, I will ungroup them, and I will delete one window so you can see our plane. After that we will have to increase the HDRI outside so we can get enough light, and when we will install our curtains you'll see the effect that we got from our final render. By the way, this is the reason why I don't play too much with the background when I'm creating interior design. I'm not saying that this is wrong, you can do this, but you'll have to count your time as well. Well, this is one more reason why I don't use this technique. You can use it, of course. But next I would like to show you a second method. I find this method to be a lot more productive and you'll understand why. For this second technique I will use a very light material. We have to simulate the same colors that we got from our background, and those colors are reflected on the objects in our interior. First of all, I find this method to be a bit more advanced. We will have to adjust the same things. We'll have to exclude our plane from the outside light, and also using very light material we are adding light to those colors from our background. And in that way we are linking the weather and the colors and the light from outside with our interior objects. So let's use the same image here with the Vray bitmap in the light color of our Vray light material. And when we assign this image to this map or to this slot, it's the same thing like simulating a piece of HDRI. Next, let's assign this material, this created material, to our plane. And one more time, let's start our render so we can see what we obtained. So let's get to the camera view and let's try to start our render and let's see what we got. We will have also to adjust the intensity of our Vray light material. In a second we will do this. By the way, you can see that we are not seeing in our windows what we want to see. This is because our plane still got those unchecked options. We'll have to return them as default. Now let's try one more time to render our image, and you can see that we are seeing now our Vray light material and our background. For the start we are getting the same problem that we got with our first solution. We have not enough light outside. That's why we'll have to get back to our Vray light material settings, and let's change here the multiplier so we can raise or increase the light that is coming from our background. When we increase our light, you can instantly see the light, the amount of light that is coming inside our interior. I think this is too much. Let's try 10 for example, and let's see what we obtain. Yes, that's better. By the way, you can see the reflections on the wall and on our TV and on other objects as well. This is actually linking the background with our interior. Let's try to decrease it a bit more so we can see what type of light we obtain. You'll have to feel the amount of light needed. There is no specific number here. Keep in mind the light is passing through our windows, and I would like to bring back our curtains so we can see what we obtain now. I know that there are people that don't use curtains for this type of windows, this type of big windows. But as someone said, curtain dresses the room. That's why from an interior design point of view I think curtains are a must. Let's fine adjust our curtains, and let's start one more time our render, and you will be able to see that the amount of light, of course the amount of light will be less. That's because the transparency of the curtains take a part of our light, and we will have to increase the outside light so we can obtain a realistic effect. So one more time, let's increase a bit our intensity or the multiplier for our Vray light material, and you'll have to feel the amount of light that you need. You can see that after increasing it's a lot better, it's looking a lot better. And also I would like to show one more function so you can control better your background. Let me add a color correction between our Vray bitmap and our Vray light material. One thing that you'll have to control here will be the saturation. This is very critical when your background is too active. Don't go too low with the desaturation or it will start to look unrealistic. So we are very close to the final part of our second solution. We are almost there. Let me start the render so you can see what we obtained. So while it is rendering, I'll start the render and I'll pause the video, and I'll show the video where we are able to see some changes in our image. You can see that it looks fine. We can leave it like this, by the way. But one more thing that I would like to show is the exclude option from our sun. By the way, you can use it for the light dome as well. but I don't think we have to mix two backgrounds together. That's why we will use only the sun exclude option. We are using this option usually when we are trying to adjust the shadows that we obtain from our sun, but as we are using blurry or smooth shadows, we will only exclude the plane from the sun lighting. If you aim to obtain sharp shadows from the sun, like a midday or midsummer day, then you'll have to adjust and play with the sun to adjust their position. This is very important as they create a lot of contrast in the images. So you can see here the exclude option. We will use both from illumination and shadow casting, and in this way this plane will not be visible for our sun. Now we will also have to understand that the light that is passing through our curtains will create some kind of diffuse effect. That's why I'm using the diffuse effect for the sun. So let us start the render and we will be able to see the final effect that we are obtaining from our sun and our Vray light material. You can see the effect of the background outside. By the way, it depends what type of curtains you are using. Some curtains do use a better transparency or increased transparency, and the background will be visible, a lot more visible. And also let me zoom a bit here so you can see the effect of the shadows, so we don't wait too long the render. And although it seems that we got no big difference here, the difference is actually present. I'll remove the curtains and then you will be able to see clearly the effect of the light, the effect of our background and our Vray sun together. If you would like to increase the effect of those shadows, you can play with the sun height first and then with the size multiplier. So let's start the render without curtains and you can clearly see the effect of those two lights combined. Well, this is the method that I'm using, this second method that I'm using to create my realistic backgrounds, but as I said, I'm not creating the realistic backgrounds too often as it depends on the time that I'm using to create my projects. I know it looks good, but more often I use only HDRIs as the curtains usually cover all that background. So that depends and it's up to you. We'll see you at the next lesson.